It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful author who was born and raised in Great Lakes and most recently headed out to the East Coast, living in Maryland and now in Massachusetts. And he's got a book out through Beacon Publishing called Our Disunited States of America, the struggles between conservatives and liberals, which is happening today. He's a graduate from Western Michigan University, also got his master's in political science at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He taught at two different Maryland colleges, and he also co-authored coalitions and civil rights movements for Coalition Behavior, Black America, and the Political System, and more, and also published in the New Alexandria Simulation, and just a lot of publications. He's really gotten the word out and explains it in a non-biased way. This gentleman does not choose sides. This guy tells it like it is. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the wonderful East Coast, author of Our Disunited States of America and Tells It Like It Is, Don Jansiewicz. Don, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sure. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you on. So you have a book called Our Disunited States of America, The Struggles Between Conservatives and Liberals. You're a graduate from Western Michigan University, and you have a master's in political science. You also taught at two different Maryland colleges. And before we get into the book and everything else, tell us how you got started.
Pardon me?
Tell us how you got started.
Oh, how I got started into politics or political science?
Yeah. Tell us how you got started career-wise, and then getting into being an author.
Okay.
It's
right.
okay.
Well, I started came out of a working class background, and I got it. I had to take a test in order to get into college, and I was so afraid of failing that I studied really hard. And I, in fact, got into the first honors college at Western Michigan University, and it's actually one of the oldest honors colleges in the country.
Okay.
And after completing that, I got in. I majored in political science and I minored in economics, and I was initially going to be teaching in the public schools, but I wanted to maybe move into higher education, which is what I did, and I moved through my career quite quickly. I started in 1970, and then 10 years later, I was promoted a full professor. I went through a number of promotions, and that's kind of at record speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stayed at the one college, and then I moved to a branch campus, which became a new institution, and I helped get that one going, and then in the year 2000, I retired, and I had been experimenting with a simulation of American government in my last year of teaching, and I published that simulation, and that it was published in about 2003, 2004, and it lasted until about 2016. And so it had a lifespan, and it's still and even though I'm not continuing it, people are still buying copies of it because it apparently works successfully. So I did that. I also published more recently a book on homeowner associations and condominiums and housing co-ops in terms of the politics that goes on in them. And then I moved on to basically moved in towards this area, back into the American government area, and I worked on about 3 years. I worked on preparing our Disunited States book, and I was really pleased that it was picked up very quickly once I sent it to a publisher. So that's what I have to say.
Wow, that's interesting. And how'd you first get involved in politics?
Well, my first experience in politics was as a child, and it was the Kennedy-Nixon race on television. This was like the first time that there was a presidential debate on television. I was just really fascinated by about politics, and when I got into the university, that I took a few courses in the political science area, and I said, "Wow, I really kind of like this." And so there was that initial exposure when I was a teenager, which kind of got me started, and it kept me going, I guess.
Wow, that is amazing. I remember the 1960 debate they had where it was just Kennedy and Nixon. It was like the first televised debate. And as the debates went on in terms of production, the aesthetics and the visualization, everything else. And how would you compare the debates that were on back then, just telling straight, to the debates they had on recently, especially with, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, the last debate? It's like, we watched it in 1960. How do you compare like the debates, between, now and then?
Well, I think that the debates were handled really more professionally back then. And it was more, they seemed really more focused on talking to the issues, rather than talking to the base, and that I think I think those earlier debates were better than what we've seen most recently.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it also talked about basically just going back and forth, the struggles, and also it's like a back and forth, and there's also just bickering, and also winner take all, and of course, the Russians get involved with it, and we'll talk more about your book in just a minute. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking our budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author and former teacher Don Jansiewicz here on the Mike Wagner Show, talking about the book Our Disunited States of America, the struggles between conservatives and liberals. It's about the self-destructive struggle between America's two political tribes, and each have been trying to gain and maintain the control of the country. And, of course, this book doesn't take sides that favor one tribe over the other, and it seems quite rare that you seem to do a really good job of not taking sides on this one. And what are some of the underlying issues that is in this conflict between the conservatives and the liberals, or Republicans versus Democrats, or just in layman's terms, left versus right?
Oh, okay. Well, the kind of issues that we face, there are kind of economic issues. There are constitutional issues. That there are international issues, and there are social issues. And when I refer to social issues, there are issues like abortion, for example, I would put in that category of in terms of male and female, and then kind of the international issues are connections with other countries, and our economic issues like the size of our government budget and the amount of debt we have. So those are the kind of issues that our government has to deal with, and the government's not doing that well with those issues.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think our current president is doing right now?
He's controversial. Yeah, he's oriented towards his election, and I can understand that's what he's doing, and he's talking to his base, and that's how, in order for him to get elected, without taking a position on him, he is just an example of what goes on in this back and forth, and this anger at the other side. Is what we have. So that's my view on that.
Mm-hmm. And then how about the other side as well too? Like, say, with Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the other sides, and give us some of your thoughts on how they are, everything, and just your general thoughts.
Yeah, well, they are, again, they're on the other side. They used to be on the winning side. They're on the competing side, and so they are doing everything they can to undermine the President Trump, and which is, if you just jump back a few years, the Republicans or the conservatives were doing everything they could to undermine Obama. So it's just the same thing is going on. They just they're just switching back and forth. And it's and from my perspective, that they are involved in a struggle with each other, and they're very fierce about it. But the general best interest of our nation are being sidelined by this. Mm-hmm. We have economic and social and constitutional issues and international issues that need to be dealt with, but it's all about debate, and you said this, you were the bad guys and we're the good guys, and it is not moving us. It is not moving us forward, and that's what I'm concerned. That's why I kind of really wrote this book. I'm concerned about the level of struggle that is taking place in our country that is really undermining all of us. from my analysis of this, the one that is kind of winning in this whole thing is Vladimir Putin.
Mm-hmm.
He is trying to undermine the West. He did it with the European Union by having the British leave it to Brexit, and that just could have set a shockwave through the European Union. And he's now feeding information and just kind of keeping things fired up to keep the struggle going on in the United States. Now, it's not that this is not just about today. This has been going on before. The Russians, back in the 1960s, there was an anti-war movement, and people were opposed to the war, and others said, "Well, you've got to be loyal to our nation." Well, what was happening is the Russians were feeding information into the anti-war movement, because what the Russians were interested in doing was destabilizing our political system. Mm-hmm. They were doing it then; they're doing it now.
Mm-hmm. And of course, what's the reasoning behind Russia feeding misinformation to not only us in the United States, but also other countries like, say, China, Japan, and third world countries, and also like in England and Italy, Germany, parts of Europe? And what is their logic? And why is Russia purposely sending out misinformation when potentially it's like they could be misinforming about themselves in their own country?
Well, looking at it just from right now, Russia finds right against along their borders are nations that they view as hostile to them, and that they see, for example, the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, as something that is just waiting to crush Russia. And so Russia is fighting for its survival from their perspective, and so they're trying to destabilize the Western powers, and one of the big Western powers, is the United States, and so that they want to do that and to keep really firing people up, getting people angry at each other, rather than having them concentrate on working out problems for the next generations, which is they're not doing.
So in other words, Russia is actually trying to seek world power overall. It's like take control of the whole world or something like that.
Not that they want to take control over the whole world. But rather they really see that we, Russia, we happen to be the largest country in Europe, and that we are trying to rebuild our system after having gone through this Marxism during the Soviet Union. So we're now trying to rebuild the system, and we're even doing some capital. We're doing much capitalism. But those in the West, they still think that the Soviet Union is still there, and that Russia is just a disguise for the Soviet Union, and so that we, Russia, need to defend ourselves. So we, Russia, are not trying to conquer the world. We, Russia, are trying to protect ourselves.
And of course, we'll look at some of the causes of the problems that's going on in the United States, and also the possible solutions as well, too. We'll talk more about that in the book, Our Disunited States of America, The Struggles Between Conservatives and Liberals, with author Donald Jansiewicz of Beacon Publishing here on The Mike Wagner Show. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention The Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author Don Jansiewicz of our Disunited States of America, The Struggles Between Conservative and Liberals, published by Beacon Publishing here on The Mike Wagner Show. And, of course, you talk about, the problems that you examine as well, too, the causes and the potential solution. So underlying with all the factors like the psychological, the social, and experimental, and, of course, covering economics, social, and constitution, what actually is the real problem that is causing this in the first place?
The real problem?
Correct. Yeah, it's like the root problem. And of course, you got the root problem. It's where you got President Trump wanting this, and then you got Nancy Pelosi and company wanting that. They're going back and forth, and it's almost like they're throwing mud balls at each other in the White House. So what was like the root problem in this situation is the causes, and we'll get to how can it be solved?
Oh well. Oh, how can it be solved? That's good. Yes.
Well, first let's talk about the problem as well, too. It's like the root problem and how this first started.
Okay. That first of all, something is going on in our brains that between conservatives and liberals. And I'm not saying one's good, one's bad. But there's been research that has been done. They use an MRI on conservatives and liberals, and found differences. That they found, for example, there's an area of the brain that is for taking in information. And that particular area of the brain is expanded for liberals. They just can't get enough new information. Then there's another area of the brain that is, and again, the research demonstrated this, that is processing fear. And that area of the brain is expanded for conservatives. They're more fearful of change. So if you have people who can't get enough things that are new and different, and those who say, "Hey, I don't like all this change," well, that's going to be one of the conflicts there between them. Then what happens on that? There's social things that our families that we grow up in, mom and dad and brothers and sisters, they all. We hear, as children, we hear what they have to say, and we absorb and begin to, in a way, copy some of that information. And as we get older, we keep associating with people who we feel comfortable with. And this goes on to both sides, conservative and liberal. They hang out with those they feel comfortable with. That, in addition to that, there's the role of the media. People who are conservatives tend to lean towards conservative-oriented media. There's media out there that tilts in that direction, and that's what conservatives go towards, and liberals on the other side going towards liberal-oriented media. And those are some of the big internal factors that take place. When you take those internal factors and you add to to that, the fact that Russia wants to stir up anger in this country, then you have almost a perfect recipe for internal conflict in the United States, and so that is what has been taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
And also, too, with the conservatives and liberals, especially with the media, there's also tend to be some where they just word and interpret different. Conservatives and liberals as well, they tend to word different. Do you think that's also a source of confusion on how you have so many conservative reporters and liberal reporters, just each person having their own interpretive spin instead of coming together like, agreeing to one thing? So do you think there could be also a problem as well, too? You have too many taking on their own spin and possibly confusing people?
Yeah, well, what they're doing, that they see that their success is going to be in terms of how popular they are, and so they nurture their message to an audience that is going to be receptive, and that that's what they do, and that is what is happening.
Mm-hmm. And then what can be eventually solved, for both to come together? What is like one or a few solutions that can be done to bring the two parties together, which may be rare, but it could possibly be done?
Well, I think
potential solutions.
I think there are some things that are moving us in that direction. One of them is that there's a population shifting that is taking place in this country. So people grow up in one part of the country and they move to another part of the country, or either move to another part of the state, and they're interacting with other people who have views that are different with them. Mm-hmm. They may, in fact, form positive relationships with them. So that kind of moving around is a good thing for our country, because it intermingles ideas. And if we didn't do that, things would be worse. Mm-hmm. It would be kind of the Civil War all over again. Mm-hmm. Another factor that is a positive thing in terms of change, in terms of pointing things in the right direction, is that there is a greater role for women in politics. Mm-hmm. today. That and when I did the examination of past elections, not just the last election, but like over 10, 15 years, that women have been voting more than men do. And mm-hmm. the spread between male and female voting keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And in addition to that, that there's that women are moving, or more and more of them are showing up in public offices, so that more and more are running for mayor, running for state legislature, running for governor, and that they're going to move more and more into Congress. More and more women will be showing up, and there will be one of these days in the White House. Now, another thing about women that is that this research that I had described before about the research that was done on the brain, that when that research was done with women are not so intense. Women are more moderate. Women are more problem solvers, not get the other side. So that's another hopeful thing. And another thing is generational differences, that the new generations coming in that are going to be taking over our country are more middle of the road, more oriented towards problem solving, and they don't have a grudge on their shoulder. So
that's interesting, because I notice on social media, like with Facebook and Twitter, and also I wouldn't count LinkedIn, but sometimes Instagram, that there's a lot of going on back and forth with arguing and everything. And I'm surprised, and it's amazing that you talked about the new generational changes, that they're not willing to argue. They're willing to sit down and solve problems. And there's another thing I want to ask as well, too, that back in the day, when it comes to media and also having people interpret, report information, and process and broadcast it out. Of course, you had the three networks. You had ABC, CBS, and NBC. And of course, you had your three main anchors like Walter Cronkite, Harry Reasoner, and Floyd Calver back in the day. And PBS was just a little baby back then. And comparing that when it comes to reporting, like between liberals and conservatives, and then you got social media that's just all over. You add Fox, CNN, and just about every little network out there. And, of course, you got all the other outlets out there you don't even know about. They're run by one or two people. Do you think having more of these social media outlets is causing more problems, or do you think they needed more of the opinion when it was just ABC, CBS, and NBC?
Yeah, well, I think what's going to happen is most of these information sources are dominated by those from our older generations, from baby boomers, the silent generation like myself, and not many left of the great generation, but that generation, those are the ones who are sort of setting the stage with the media. Now, there is new generations are going to move into it, and yes, some of them, younger people, have their minds made up, and they've been thoroughly socialized by others, but most younger people, are more tilted towards the middle, more oriented towards problem solving rather than blaming.
Mm-hmm. So the main problem, it sounds like it's blaming, but it seems like with the new generation, they don't call themselves diehard conservatives, diehard liberals. They just wanted to just, come together and just take everything and, in a sense, become independent, you could say.
Yeah, because what they hear, they find out is that both the liberals, both the conservatives have, over the last years, 10, 20 years, have run up enormous debt for the federal government. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that we pay off our debt by borrowing more money to pay off debt. And so the younger people say, "Hey, we are the ones that are going to be stuck with this." That the older generations, what they just think that that they can just keep borrowing more and borrowing more, and that. They got to they have to get real. So the younger generations are going to really be more pragmatic. We've got to solve this problem. In addition to that, younger generations are growing up in a different world than I grew up in. And the world that I grew up in was white, and there were not many other foreign-born around. And now these new generations that they come in are really more mixture of races and ethnicity, and that they feel comfortable with it. It's their grandparents are feeling uncomfortable.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's going back to the roots as well, too, that, having this race and ethnicity, they're trying to keep it pure, but then it's like you have the younger generation, which they want to say, hey, let's expand our boundaries, expand our wings and whatever, and not be afraid to try it.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a key right there, too. And lastly as well, how can this country do better? How can we do better? And how can we help make it better?
Well, there are groups out there that are really trying to solve these problems. One of these groups is called Better Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do, the Better Angels bring together conservatives and liberals and have them not debate in a traditional sense and say who's going to win, but rather let's hear both sides and let's see what we can let's see what's the best course of action that we can find to try to blend these ideas together. So there are organizations like that which I think are on the front line, and also that getting back to I talked about women. The League of Women Voters is another organization that is trying to bring people in to create wider discussions, not have that old back and forth between liberals and conservatives. Let's just get real and solve problems.
Mm-hmm. And I think that makes perfect sense, too. So once again, author Don Jansiewicz of Our Disunited States of America, Struggles Between Conservatives and Liberals, published by Beacon Publishing on the Mike Wagner Show. Don, it's been great. I love to thank you for your time. Love to have you back on again soon. And just a few more things. And I forgot to ask you earlier, who are some of your favorite authors and writers growing up? I forgot to ask you that.
My favorite authors?
Correct, yes.
Oh, goodness. Who that would be? Let's see. I may give that.
Or some political figures as well, too. Influences and, what have you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. A good example of a really compelling author is someone like Doris Kearns Goodwin,
mm-hmm.
who has examined the president, a number of presidencies, and she really does it in a careful academic way without trying to paint one as good as one as bad. So that's a kind of an example of a good author.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And also, who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Oh my goodness! Probably it was I took as an undergraduate. I took a speech course, and this instructor had he was so encouraging for me. I was a pretty shy and reserved undergraduate, afraid of failing, and he was able to show me that I had some potential. And I think that he really made a difference.
And it sounds like it too. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Advice what?
What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Oh, okay. Listen. Listen to what other people have to say, rather than telling them what they should know.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important, too. That is the best thing a lot of people lack. And, of course, sometimes I blame myself, too, and we all make a better effort to listen. Once again, author Don Jansiewicz of Our Disunited States of America, Struggles Between Conservatives and Liberals, published by Beacon Publishing on the Mike Wagner Show. Don, big thanks for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to hearing you again soon. Learned a lot from you. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What can we expect you from 2020? What's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people purchase your books?
Oh, well, www.donjansiewicz.com is a good place to start. Or if they go to the Beacon website, Beacon Publishing website, and look up my name, they will find that book. So those are some good places to start.
That's fantastic. Once again, Don, a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor, keep this up to date. Love you to have back on 2020 and beyond. You've been great.
Okay, thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.